Hi, y'all. Jean here. How is everybody doing? Yeah, like my channel, subscribe to my channel. I'll be so grateful. Thank you. For everyone who is new here, yeah, subscribe. Anyways, tonight I actually want to talk about this idea or, the thing that I've been doing a lot in my life, which is begin again. And the way the way people usually say it is to it's never too late, but I have my own thing. I like the idea of saying begin again. Then it doesn't really fall into the cliche of it's not too late, it's not too late, because the truth is it is really not too late. It's not too late for you, it's not too late for me. And I've decided that this channel is for people who wants to begin again, or for people who wants to start something. It doesn't matter whether you're young or old. I just feel that this channel would serve a lot of people who wants to begin again. Because here, I think I am going to be sharing a lot of stories about beginning, my spiritual stories. I am going to apologize, guys. Tonight, I am so tired. I can hear it in my voice. I can hear it in the in the shit show that I'm having here. But you know what? I am just going to go ahead and continue because I have the understanding that I am a bit tired and it's very late right now. And there's a good reasons for that. I'm going to come back to this whole idea of begin again in a moment. But today, right now, it is minus 16 outside. And this morning, it was minus 16. But it felt like minus 30. It was so cold. Every time I step outside, which I was outside all most of the morning, and actually I was outside for almost the whole day because I went to ceremony. But before I went to ceremony, I'll tell you guys a little bit of a story. Um, so every time I go outside, the wind is hitting me in my face so hard that I want to sit down and cry because I'm so cold. Oh dear, like you wouldn't believe the kind of passion and energy I want to say that in. I wanted to cry today. Okay, I'm just having fun. I'm doing this video. I'm not sure if I'm going to post it, but I'm doing a video every day. And you know what? I'm showing up as I am today. So I hope you continue listening. So my roommate, my friend, he is in India right now. However, he needed to be at the courthouse, He got a ticket for speeding. So he got a speeding ticket, and I'm not sure what happened, but he had a court date today. So he couldn't show up. So he asked if I can go in his place. And of course, I was like, of course, yes, I do have to go to ceremony today, but I can fit you in this morning. And the court was open since at 9. You need to get there before 9:30. So I arrived at the courthouse and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go in there and let them know that my friend, my roommate sent me in his place because he cannot make it. And so they would just tell me, okay, he can come another day, something like that. So when I go up to the lady, I speak to the woman in the front area first, and she said, go inside of the courthouse. You're going to see, I don't know, the magistrate or something like that is there, and tell her that you come to stand for, your person. So I go inside. There's a lineup inside of the courtroom. It is a small room. There's about 20 policemen in there. Then a few criminals, or maybe, a few people with traffic tickets, because out here in this, Kenmore streets, not too many criminals, but we do have people that don't, pay their ticket, their speeding ticket or whatever, right? And so while I'm waiting in line, this young woman got called, no, I went up, yeah, first, I went up to the magistrate and I said, I'm here for so and so. And she said, oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I see his listing here. Why don't you go have a seat? Because we need, no. She said, oh, we need to find a date for him. And I said, okay, thank you. I'm going to leave. And she said, no, why don't you go have a seat? And I'm like, I have to go sit down. And yeah, you have to go sit down. We have to wait until the judge come. And I'm like, what? I just decided to give this thing like 10 minutes. And here I am. I'm going to have to sit down and wait for the judge. I am not a criminal because by this time I'm feeling like I have committed a crime and therefore I am in the courthouse, right? I'm like, I am ashamed. Last night I was on my video, I was talking about being ashamed, and I have to tell you, I did no wrong. But because I'm in a court of law, I feel kind of ashamed to be there because I was like, I didn't commit any crime. I didn't, I wasn't speeding. I'm just here for a friend. The things we do for our friends, right? So finally, I go and I sit down, and then I was like, oh my God, I have this other thing I need to do. So I kind of go outside for a minute, not outside, because outside is very cold. So I was just, in the front area of the courthouse. So then I go back inside, they start calling names. And my friend, his last name is V, start with a V. So I was like, oh my God, they're calling names by alphabetical order. When am I when am I going to go? When am I going to leave here? So finally, they call well, not my name, but finally they call his name. And then I didn't even notice because I was like, who are they calling? Anyways, I got called up and I had to stand in front of the judge, guys. Like, I didn't realize I had to do this whole process. I just thought I can go to the courthouse and tell them my friend can't make it, if they can give me another date and then I would leave. But no. I actually had to stand in front of the judge like a criminal. There was this young girl that got a real speeding ticket. I don't know how fast she was going because the judge decided to charge her more than $800. And she said to the judge, Judge, I have a kid, like I have a baby. I'm a single mom with a baby, and I cannot afford to pay that. So could you give me like 9 months grace, which the judge did give her, but he gave her that, and he also gave her a scolding. He gave her a licking with the tongue. It's like, young lady. Yes, he gave her a little bit of a schooling. Anyways, that was my morning. Excuse me. And then I had to drive at least about 45 minutes away to go to my ceremony. And I was in ceremony all day, and it was cold, um and but it was just, the type of ceremony that I go to, being in sweat lodge and praying for the day. That's as much as I'm going to say about that. But that's why I'm singing so kind of tired, and I'm wearing my head scarf right now because I just arrived home. But coming back to this idea of beginning again, um, you know, when I give up my apartment in Banff in 2020, at the pandemic, when I give up my big, kind of bougie apartment, I am too poor to be in such a bougie apartment. I was paying big money that I didn't have. Mainly, I was just living off of my credit card. But the pandemic actually waked me up. I actually became wide awake in the pandemic. I mean, I've been awake before, but I felt like I had a clear sight, very clear sight on the chaos of the world in 2020. George Floyd, that we have just, saw the video. And in my mind, like, it seems like everybody is running around screaming that they're going to die. And if that's the case, I didn't technically feel that way because, out here, um, we weren't as restricted as other people. My experience throughout the pandemic was really not terrible. I'm sorry to say this, but I didn't have a terrible experience. And the reason for that is that I still kind of stayed in community. My group of people that I was hanging out with, my real core group of spiritual people, we were sweating, we were in ceremony every single week. We were allowed to be in ceremony every single week. So, we were in ceremony and in prayer every week. So somehow we didn't feel like, the sky was falling as much as how other people did. Plus, I got the opportunity to be out and about in nature every day. So I really didn't feel that, that intense um, fear that the rest of the world had. I didn't have a chance to do that. So the pandemic was very much, kind of like really, I got a lot of deep insight around that time because, as I say, I was in ceremony a lot. And plus, I could have, I had the freedom to walk around our little town in Banff at the time. So I left my condo. Well, I was renting. Prior to that, I was married and I separated, and I kind of continue living the same means I was living when I was married. I was living on my own, not realizing that I couldn't sustain living like that because I was on my own and I had, I'm working in the summertime, not in the wintertime. So it was hard to sustain. So, anyways, I left, I pack up, give away my stuff, and I left my condo or where I was renting. And I went after the summer. Um, I took a trip to the ashram that was in 2020 because at the end of 2020, I took a trip all the way to Victoria. And then I came back to the middle of BC and stayed at the ashram. And that is the Yoshoda Ashram just outside of Nelson around Crawford Bay here in Canada, in BC. And I went to the ashram just before November. I think it was late October because I had my birthday there. And when I arrived, I ended up in quarantine there for like 2 weeks, which was really nice. I was living in this beautiful little cabin above a lake, and I was getting my food bring to the door. I was doing yoga. I was chanting. I was praying. I could walk around the grounds. Um, and so quarantine for me was was really really nice. When I think about it, I probably do live quite a bougie kind of life, right? Anyways, don't get it twisted. It's not to make you angry, but if you are, whatever. um so anyway, I end up there and I stayed there for 6 months, almost 6 months, because I got there in October. I stayed November, December, January, February, March, April. I came back to Banff in the middle of April, which was just about at least a week or two before I go back to my summer job. And when I return, I end up going straight to live at the YWCA. Now, the thing is, when I moved from that big apartment that I was living in, when I downsized and I moved from there, I moved into a townhouse that a friend of a friend owned, but she wasn't there, so I stayed in her townhouse for the summer. And then after the summer, I end up going, I did the trip and then I came back and I was at the YWCA. So now that is two places I've lived since leaving my beautiful condo that I was living in for a few years. So I end up at the Y. I stayed at the Y for the whole summer. And when the summer was over, that was 2021, at the end of 2021, no, October, I think, of 2021, I went to Grenada via, I think, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. I spent a day with my brother. And so I went to Grenada. Now, at the Y, I had to give up the space that I was staying there. And so I went to Grenada. And I stayed in Grenada for a few months. I think I stayed from November, December, January, and I came back in February. But before I returned in February, I had a friend that invited me to come and stay with her. So I arrived back in February 2020. Yeah, now it's 2022, and I'm living at a friend in Banff home. And I stayed with her for roughly almost the entire year of 2022 until the end of 2022. I decided that I am going to go to live with my son. Now, by now, um, the only thing I own is in my car, right? The only thing I own, everything I own fit into my car. And that's how I like it, because I had simply downsized to that. Like I take nothing. I take no prisoners. And so, so in 2022, at the end of 2022, I think it must have been October, around that time, because my birthday was at my son, so it was in October. I drive again. I'm going towards BC. I stop at the ashram for, we didn't overnight there, but we stopped to say hello and to see the people. And then we drove from there. We stayed in Nelson that night. I had a friend with me, and then we drove all the way to Victoria, because I decided I'm going to go and live in Victoria. But here is the thing: I arrived in Victoria before November. Yeah, so it was in October. And by November, I think by my birthday, I was in a bit of a crisis. While I was in I turned 60 while I was there visiting my son lived there, and I thought I would go live with him for a start and then begin again, change my life. Now we have to see, how many places I've been and I have lived since I give up my secure place that I couldn't afford, right? So I arrived there, and then it was my birthday, and I made a decision that I was going to go. I found this woman that did this freestyle dancing on the beach in Victoria, and I hook up with her, and I used to go. You pay for an entire week, I think, every month. The last full week of every month, or the first week of the month, she would have this dance, this, like, you have your own earphone, and you go and you're on the beach and you dancing, but there is a whole group of people that is dancing on the beach with your headphone. And I have never done that before, and it was just wild. And although I was sad, and I definitely decided that I would do that. So I spent my 60th birthday at 7 a.m. in the morning, dancing on a beach in Victoria, BC. And it was wild, it was beautiful, it was nice. I had just met this group of women. They even brought me gifts. It was really fabulous. But ended up, what was happening to me underneath the surface while I was there, I felt like I was in a breakdown. Actually, I didn't feel like I was in a breakdown. I was in a breakdown. There was something that was going on with my heart that I couldn't mend, that I couldn't fix. My heart was, it seems like my heart was aching in such a way, not a broken heart. I didn't have a broken heart. I know the difference in having a broken heart. There was no, I wasn't in anything romantic, but I was really having this real, um, it's like my heart like it was just in deep, I would say, like, I don't even think it was sorrow. It was just this deep, I think it's grief. I think that's what it is, because my heart wasn't broken, but it was just weeping, you know. And I find myself crying every day, like the kind of historic, guys, help me out. Hysteric. I was hysterical, right? Oh my God, this tongue of mine, it get twisted. So anyway, I was so hysterical, and but I didn't show anybody that. I got a little job next door in a cafe that cooks soup, and I was enjoying that. Well, I was chopping a lot of onions, so hence I can cry, nobody would know, because I was most of my job was chopping up onions for soup, and I was doing some freelance and cleaning, so I was kind of supplementing myself in that way. But I must say, that kind of a deep, um, I wouldn't call it a breakdown, but I know that I was in a breakdown. I would call it like as an existential crisis. You can correct me if you want. Yeah. But that's, I think I was inside of a real deep crisis. I feel like I was wounded. I felt wounded. And I think too, it was the closest I was to my son. I mean, my son is an adult male, but I haven't been around him in a long time. And that was a close time for me and him. And he didn't know that I was in such sorrow, that I was in such this kind of a deep grief. He didn't know that because I didn't show him that ache, in such of a heartache. That's what it is. I had a heartache, not a heartbreak. My heart ached, and it let me cried and cry and cry. And within that time, which was not even a month of being in Victoria, I know that I didn't want to stay. So I got into my car around the 3rd of December in the middle of winter, and I drove 14 hours from Victoria back to Banff. Actually, I came into Kenmore, and I came in broke, with no home, with no place to stay. And yeah, and so this is, and I begin again. So this is what I'm encouraging you to do: begin again. It's a possibility I might continue the story, but there is the story end when I drove back to Kenmore, right? So please like and subscribe to my channel. Um, Thank you so much for, if you're here and you're looking at this, you're listening to me. Thank you so much. If you make it this far, I am kind of like a slow burn. I get all perked up just the first few minutes in the video. But like and subscribe to my video. I'll be so grateful. I would leave you with this: do less, be more, and you can begin again anytime. Thank you, guys.